And Democrats got their first chance to hold the heads of ICE and Border Patrol accountable today, directly questioning them in their first appearance on Capitol Hill since federal agents killed 2 American citizens. Benny Thompson, the top Democrat on the House Homeland Security Committee, joined other Democrats in his call for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to resign. Congressman Dan Goldman called ICE and CBP tactics un-American and outright fascist. And Democrat Seth Magaziner tried to underscore how far agents have strayed from standard practices. He played local news coverage from Chicago of U.S. citizens getting pepper sprayed.
This is video of what appears to be pepper spray thrown by a federal agent into Rafael Veraza's car.
You okay, Mama? You okay?
Seconds later, he realized his daughter, 1-year-old Ariana, was in the back seat, also battling the chemicals.
Are you familiar with this incident?
Yes.
Is it proper procedure to aim pepper spray into the window of a moving vehicle?
I'm not familiar. I don't have all the details on this. It's an ongoing
I'm not asking about this,
but to answer your specific question,
is it proper procedure?
We try to avoid that. No, it's not.
Try to avoid it. I'd like to show you another video. This one is from Minneapolis. So as you can see, the agent sprayed pepper spray at close range directly into the face of an individual who had already been pinned to the ground by 3 other agents. And there's a picture of this behind me to give you a better view. Is this proper procedure for the use of pepper spray?
I cannot comment on that because you're only showing one piece, and that subject is clearly not compliant. The intended use is to try to avoid escalating.
Joining us, MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell and former acting director of ICE, John Sandweg. So, John, did you get any sufficient answers out of that testimony?
No, Katie, and unfortunately, that's just the reality, too, of these congressional hearings these days. You know, a lot of times it turns into a speechifying episode instead of these kind of harder questions I think we all have about what was going on in Minneapolis, how we had all these use of force incidents, and really what most interests me, Katie, is was it worth it, right? I mean, we still don't have clean data about who was arrested in Minneapolis, where they were taken into custody, what nexus do they have to the criminal justice system, if any, whether these were just asylum seekers or refugees. And I think unless and until we get that data, we'll never be able to fully know whether there's any validity to the administration's position that this was a necessary evil, right, in order to get these criminals off the street. I suspect, based on everything we've seen and based on my experience with the nature of these operations and how they were carrying out these tactics, that we're going to see a significant number of the people they arrested had absolutely no nexus to the criminal justice system. If they did, it was very minor. But again, I wish, unfortunately, that's just not what you get out of these congressional hearings, not that kind of information.
What about the accountability, though, for the way that they treated American citizens and protesters, specifically those 2 incidents that Seth Magaziner posted about or asked about? I mean, it seems strange to me that the heads of those agencies didn't give definitive answers about whether those moves went too far.
Yeah, okay, it's hard because the standard protocol and the rules here are exactly to answer it like they did. The problem, though, of course, is that we saw so much different approach by Noem, Miller, the vice president, and others right after these incidents, right? Labeling people domestic terrorists, saying that they're intending to cause harm, they're going to massacre federal agents. Of course, now when these the agency leaders say, hey, this is an ongoing investigation, I shouldn't discuss it. They're absolutely right, but it looks awfully hypocritical, seeing as how what the secretary and the White House personnel did earlier.
Yeah, and also just not, confirming without a doubt that the agents who did these things are being investigated. Michael, hanging over all of this is a partial government shutdown happening in just a few days if they don't come to a DHS funding agreement. Did you get an indication today from that hearing or from what lawmakers are saying on Capitol Hill that they're close to a compromise on pulling these agents back, putting more requirements around their conduct?
No, Katie, not at all. In fact, we seem to be moving a little bit in the wrong direction. We know that last week, Democrats unveiled 10 demands that they are making as part of these negotiations for Department of Homeland Security funding. 10 guardrails that they believe need to be placed on this immigration crackdown by ICE that was officially sent to Republicans over the weekend. And just yesterday, we heard that the White House had sent a counterproposal to Democrats that very quickly Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are casting to the side, which means we are no closer to finding a solution to this Department of Homeland Security funding issue on Friday. And look, I think that this hearing, it's such important context and the backstory to it are these negotiations and government funding talks up here on Capitol Hill. The whole reason why Democrats are saying that they want to have these guardrails is because of what happened in the past weeks and months in Minneapolis. And we heard from these officials today on a number of occasions from questions from Democrats if they apologize for what happened, if they could say that it was wrong for Alex Preddy and Renee Good to be killed, if they can conclusively say, even after all the information has been released, that Alex Preddy was not a domestic terrorist. And these officials from the Department of Homeland Security were not able to say that. I could assume that's not going to sit well with these Democrats and at all bring them down from wanting these changes and these differences and these guardrails on how ICE is conducting its business.